up, you guys, and welcome back to Cantos Gaming. Today we're going to be taking a look at 5 of my favorite abilities for Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I would go as far as to say that these are my top 5 favorite abilities for the game, but please keep in mind that what works best for me might not work best for you. So, I hope you enjoyed the video, and let me know what you think down in the comments below. Alright guys, so today, like I said, we're going to be taking a look at my 5 favorite abilities and what I think are 5 of the most useful abilities in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. What I think the top 5 are might differ from what your top 5 are, depending on the type of build you use for your character. I typically don't stick to any build, I just kind of throw as much stuff in there as I possibly can and hope for the best. I've tried to start doing a little more research and trying to find out how to best maximize different builds, like assassin builds, warrior builds, hunter builds. The first on the list is the Predator Shot. The Predator Shot in your ability tree is something you can get fairly early on. It's right down here under the Hunter ability. It allows you to zoom and shoot arrows that deal 430% damage, and it travels 25% farther. If you hold down RT and R2 to gain control of your arrow, you can also change the direction that it is going while it is in the air, as long as you keep your finger on the button. Then you have another 2 upgrades you can do after that, and the final upgrade gives you a total of 600% hunter damage and travels 150% farther. You can also use special arrows once you get the final upgrade. So let's see how this ability works for us. Alright, so let's see the Predator Shot in practice. We've got a target here. Bam! We can also control the arrow just like that in case he was going to move. And you guys see 2 arrows and it took him down. Our number 4 ability is the Ring of Chaos. This is something that you can get pretty early on. I'm pretty sure I had this before I left Catalonia, so fairly low level. At the first upgrade, or rather the first acquiring of the ability, you emit a sudden shocking blast that stuns enemies within 3 meters and deals 150% warrior damage. Now when you do the 2 upgrades, you will end up dealing 250% warrior damage, and the blast will stun enemies within 7 meters. So let's just show you guys how this works out. It's also one of my favorite abilities to use to knock people off mountains because it is so incredibly effective at doing so. Number 3 on our list is the Rush Assassination ability. This is one of my favorite abilities because of how fast it can deal with enemies. When you first acquire the ability, you can launch the Spear of Leonidas at a distance at a distant enemy to deal 100% assassin damage, and you can chain it 1 time, meaning you can kill or injure a total of 2 enemies. But once you've upgraded this the 2nd time, you can chain 3 enemies, which means you can possibly kill a total of 4 enemies and deal 150% assassin damage per attack. So this is super, super helpful if you're first entering a fort. Maybe you don't have a whole lot of stamina, so Predator Shot, or how you normally like to take out a bunch of enemies at once, isn't an option. It only takes 1 of your stamina bars. Alright, let's see the Rush Assassination ability in practice. This ability comes in handy many times during the game. One in particular I can think of is during the Kingfisher plot arc, where you are having to choose between saving a man or his wife. If you can actually sneak up with the Rush Assassination ability and get rid of the Kingfisher's men, you can save both of them. So we took out 3 enemies and did quite a bit of damage to the captain there with just 1 stamina bar, thanks to the Rush Assassination ability. Number 2 on our list is Overpower Attacks. This is a massively powerful attack that will vary depending on your weapon and requires usually 3 full adrenaline segments to use. However, I do have an engraving currently that allows me to use Overpower Attacks for 2 full adrenaline segments. I have found that swords and daggers typically do the best for overpower attacks. If you use something like a spear, a trident, or even one of the larger bludgeons, sometimes they can just straight up miss. You can be hitting your target for the first smackdown, and then all of a sudden you're facing a different way and hitting nothing. I'm not sure if that's just melee operator error on my part or what, but this is what I have found to be one of the most useful abilities with swords and daggers. Once you upgrade this the second time, the damage and number of attacks increase. There is no specific percentages because it does vary based on weapon, but let's show you guys how this works. So we've got full adrenaline bars and we've even got some mercenaries. So I'm actually going to pair this with our number 1 just to kind of give you guys a better idea of how effective this can be. What I just used was the Battle Cry of Ares, which I'll talk about in a second, but the Overpower abilities allow me to do quite a lot of damage. As you can see, 2 adrenaline bars, and we have got about a third of that mercenary's health down. And again, you can see now the multiple attacks, and it looks like we're actually going to almost completely kill this guy. Now, the reason that was so effective was because I used the Battle Cry of Ares ability, which is our number 1 ability in the game. This gives you godlike strength, and it is probably the most useful thing I have ever found out about in the game. When you originally get this ability, the Battle Cry of Ares, you inflict 20% more damage to your enemies for 10 seconds. And during that time, all enemy attacks are non-lethal, meaning you can completely run out of health while you are in the Battle Cry of Ares mode, and even when you come out of it, you will not be dead unless you get hit again. By the time you upgrade for a second time, you will inflict 50% more damage for 20 seconds, and during that time, all enemy attacks again are non-lethal, and every hit received boosts your attack damage. Another amazing thing about this ability is it doesn't actually take stamina, but it does have quite a long cooldown period, so make sure you're using this ability wisely. When you combine this with the overpower attacks, you're dealing so much damage. It is a very, very effective way to take out mercenaries that are higher level than you, a quick way to take out the polemarchs or anybody else, especially when you're in the conquest battles. Now that we've seen my top 5 abilities for Assassin's Creed Odyssey, here are my honorable mentions. The first of which is the Ghost Arrows of Artemis. The number 1 reason I like this ability is because it allows you to shoot sharks in the water. You need to be on a boat, obviously, or something, because you can't use your bow while you're in the water, but this is the only way you can shoot sharks that are underwater with your bow and arrow, and it makes it easier to clear things like underwater temples. So when you first acquire this ability, it shoots an arrow that can travel through shields, enemies, and walls. It also deals 260% hunter damage. Now on the second upgrade, it again shoots through shields, enemies, and walls, dealing 340% hunter damage, but also allowing you to use special arrows with this ability. Now the second honorable mention I have is Call to Arms. This is super good in theory, but for me it wasn't super effective in practice. I didn't use it too much, but I can definitely see that how people would use it a lot in their playthroughs. So Call to Arms, when you first acquire this ability, allows you to summon one of your lieutenants to distract an enemy for at least 30 seconds. Please keep in mind that you have to be hidden when you first use this ability. You cannot just be out in the open wanting to get away from a bunch of enemies. You have to be hidden in order to summon your lieutenant. But once you get to the second upgrade, you can distract enemies for a total of 50 seconds. This can come in handy when you're in very, very crowded forts and you're wanting to try to get to a specific spot. Let's say you have to remain anonymous to get to a certain interaction with a certain character, and it's just very difficult to do so if there's a lot of people around. My final honorable mention is the Spartan Kick, and I know that this is typically a rather overrated ability. I know a lot of people don't use it because it is not incredibly powerful, but it is a very useful tool if you're wanting to recruit people. So let's say you need some lieutenants and you aren't super good at recruiting them any other way, because this allows you to kind of knock them out once they have very little health without killing them, and then you can recruit them. When you first get this ability, it deals 160% warrior damage, but by the second upgrade, it deals 250% warrior damage. The kick is so powerful that multiple targets can also be knocked by the shockwave once you hit that second upgrade. One of the most useful instances I found for this is when you're on rooftops doing any kind of combat, or maybe on a mountaintop. You can actually kick people off roofs and mountains. Ring of Chaos does the same thing, but more effective. But the Spartan Kick looks hilarious. If you kick somebody off of a mountain, you're going to be dying laughing, I promise. It's absolutely hilarious to see people just fly away. And once you hit that second upgrade, the kick is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, you literally punt people like 800 feet, it seems like. But because it's not a lethal attack, I didn't want to put it in my top 5 abilities. As you can see there in the animation, you can kick enemies off the mountainside, like I said, which is incredibly useful for quick knockouts. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, subscribe down below. I'd really appreciate it. In the description below, you'll find links to all my other social media accounts. If you have any other abilities that you think I should have added to the list, let me know down in the comments below. Also, make sure you follow me on Twitch and hang out on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Sundays for live streaming from 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I hope you guys have a safe and wonderful rest of your week, and I'll see you next time.